Welcome, everyone. This is Recovery Dharma. My name is Julia. I'm one of the facilitators of our beautiful practice. This is a wonderful card and painting that one of our Sangha members, Lynn, painted. She lives in Montana and she sent me this card, and I promptly chopped it up into small pieces and wrote a sentiment of metta on the back of this one. Metta means loving kindness, and this one reads, may the layers of unwanted thought peel away into bright dreams. May the layers of unwanted thought peel away into bright dreams. Hmm. Friends, on Wednesdays we call Zen's days. And we do a practice where we pick up a book written by a Zen practitioner and we study the book. It started a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, with Suzuki Roshi's book, Beginner's Mind. Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. And for the last 2.5 years, we have been studying the book Standing at the Edge by Roshi Joan Halifax. And last Wednesday, we finished this book after 2.5 years of meeting every Wednesday, reading a small section from this book. So it has been quite a devotion and quite a practice. And today, what I'd like to do is I'd like to call forward the Bodhisattva Jizo, who is a Japanese bodhisattva, who legend says that Jizo intentionally goes into hell realms. And Jizo, being Japanese, wears a robe. And the robe, a little bit like a kimono, has very wide sleeves. And the legend is that Jizo will go into these hell realms, open their robe, and people who feel called, people who feel inspired, people who feel ready, people, I'm sure by accident even, jump into her robe, their robe, and are enveloped in great compassion and care and earthside, brought to this realm for healing and transformation. Such a sweet story, such a wonderful idea. What if in this practice we could be our own Jizo and wrap ourselves in our own sense of compassion from, from the hell realm of substance misuse, of negative habit energy in general? That is the invitation. Part of what enables us to do this and to practice this is something that Roshi calls edge states. To be a human being and to live a full life means that we will encounter experiences that bring us right up to the edge of our capacity, right up to the edge of our understanding, right up to the edge of our comfort. And there is the place of deepest growth, deepest capacity for reflection. But because we are, many of us, untrained, we have the risk of either going over the edge into some kind of distress, or we don't get close enough to the edge out of fear and anxiety. And so we deprive ourselves of learning. So, what I'd like to do today, in honor of Jizo, in honor of Roshi Joan, and this beautiful book that we've invested so much time and energy in studying, is I'd like to bring forward the 6 edge states that she has talked about in this book and give you a couple of ideas on how to work with them and how they may appear in your own life. So the 6 edge states, and there aren't only 6, there are many, but these are the 6 that she chose to write about, begins with altruism. And altruism, another word for altruism, is the idea of generosity or giving. And if you think that you don't have an issue with giving, or you don't, or you wonder, what is my issue with giving? I'm a pretty generous person. I'm not stingy. Is if you have the attitude that says, yeah, it's easier for me to give than receive. If that's you, then you probably have some toxic aspects about altruism within you. And welcome to being human, as far as I'm concerned. Okay? So that's a great indicator, is if we feel like we're better at giving than we are receiving, we probably engage in some toxic behavior regarding our giving. And it happens all the time. We go into resentment. That's where we've given and given and given and given, and we're not getting anything back, and we're resentful. That's toxic altruism. Oh well, happens. What can we do to heal it? Roshi gives us clues. There are 3 practices that help support, help mature, and help bring wisdom to our capacity to give and to receive. And the first is something she calls not knowing. We may not always know what to do, how best to give. We may not always be secure in receiving. And if we can just be aware of that, we'll probably be okay. The other is to bear witness. Notice how you feel. Notice what you're thinking. When you're in a situation of being giving, question your motivation. When you're in the position of receiving something or needing something, look at your resistance. Bear witness. And the third practice of supporting altruism is something she calls compassionate action. And I am going to invite you to just let those 2 words settle in your own mind and speak wisdom within you. Compassionate action. Empathy is the second edge state. And the most common toxic expression, overextension of empathy, is something called empathetic distress, burnout, fatigue, compassion fatigue. And there are 2 practices that support expanding and developing and maturing empathy. They are deep listening, and not just listening to somebody else, deep listening to your own needs. The other practice is something Roshi calls rehumanization, to rehumanize. I like to call it the practice just like me. We kind of lose our way with empathy when we're distressed and we start othering people. To regain a sense of empathy is to remember, wow, that person is really struggling, just like me when I struggle. My struggle looks different, but we are struggling nevertheless. This person in their unique struggle is just like me in my unique struggle. That's how we rehumanize one another. The third edge state is integrity, and Roshi refers to this as living by vow. And I really love those words, and yet they can be a little bit holier than thou, which kind of makes me, it stirs up my inner adolescent, and I like roll my eyes like, oh, please, we're so spiritual. And it kind of gags me. So we're going to think about a vow as a decision that we make. This is something that we're really holding ourselves up to. It's something that we are truly dedicated to aspiring toward. When we have integrity, we are really trying to bring to life a version of ourselves that isn't necessarily always our best self, but it's a version of ourselves that we are continually working on, we are continually aspiring to be. So when we are in those places where we're not actually our best selves, we are aware of it, we own it, we acknowledge it. That's living in integrity. When we are out of integrity, we experience things like moral distress, moral outrage, disgust, anger. And we also can experience moral apathy and despair. When we are out of integrity, we are often in a place of collapse, head in the sand, complete overwhelm. Some supportive practices to keep us empowered, keep us going with our integrity, keep us plugged in. Number one, stay curious. Even when you're experiencing collapse, and you will, there's nothing wrong with feeling morally outraged. There are some things that happen in our experience that deserve moral outrage, frankly, and those are the things that can enact compassionate action to seek justice. But if we're acting from a place of moral outrage, that's the difference. We want to respond to the moral outrage with respect, with integrity, with wisdom. To do that, we have to stay curious. Wow, would you look at that? Look at all this anger I have. Look at all this disgust I have. I wonder what that's all about. Another practice is to simply practice gratefulness. Take a step back. Look at what you have. Be grateful. But you can only engage this practice if you're not feeling obligated, if you're not feeling bossed around, if you really have a sincere desire to feel grateful. When you do, that can support your return to integrity. And then the final support is to just remember your aspirations, your vows, your decisions and determinations. That will keep you in integrity as well. And this one's really important when encountering craving on the journey of recovery. A craving can arise and it can be really destabilizing, it can be really upending. But you don't have to step out of your integrity. In fact, you can step forward with integrity toward that craving and say, hey, I made a decision not to engage this craving. I made a decision to shift my relationship to habit energy. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to acknowledge you, craving. Hello, craving. You've arisen. And now I'm going to do something healthier for myself rather than entertain you. That is integrity. The fourth edge state is respect. You know, we could spend 10 years talking about this particular edge state. There's a lot to respect, and its sister, its opposite, disrespect. But there are two things that Roshi emphasizes in her book. The first is the hand mudra and blessing and sentiment that we do in our practice, which is hands in prayer pose at the level of the heart, and we bow. Namaste is what we say as a greeting, as an honoring. It's a way of acknowledging that we are connected deeply, and we bow with reverence and respect to one another. She also quotes His Holiness the Dalai Lama, which I really love this quote and this focus of his, which is make your religion kindness. Wouldn't that be something? It's such a respectful way to engage with all living beings, including yourself. And many of us on the journey of recovery have a long history and habit energy of being disrespectful toward ourselves, toward our bodies, toward our minds, what we consume, and the way we talk to ourselves in the privacy of our own minds is usually harsh, aggressive, and violent, all of which are disrespectful. So the toxic expression of respect is to be a bully, to engage in power struggles within the self and toward others. So to support and to cultivate respect begins in a number of ways, but I'm going to focus on something that I've mentioned this week already, which is the gates of speech, the gates of wise speech. In the sutras, the Buddha mentions 3. Roshi mentions 5. They're very similar. The first 3 and the ancient 3 gates to wise speech. This is something that you discern before you say anything. Pass your language through these 3 gates. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it helpful, beneficial? Roshi adds, is it even necessary? And is it the right time? What I love about this particular practice is so often when we engage with one another, particularly on the journey of recovery, there's often this distorted sense of urgency. I have to say this right now. I got to get it off my chest. And the minute we engage in that thinking, we've gone over the edge of respect in our speech because we're not actually thinking clearly. We're not taking a moment to reflect and discern, well, wait a minute. Yeah, I've got this on my chest and I'd really like to ventilate it, but is it true? Is it kind? Is it helpful? Is it necessary right now? And it might be, but we have to discern that. When you practice this, it's so amazing. You begin to cultivate more and more respect for self and others. The fifth practice is something she calls engagement. This is the fifth edge state. And I love this one because engagement is nothing more than think about all the ways you are engaged with your life, all the ways you're busy, but you're busy, distracted, busy. Think about all the ways you're disengaged. And so this is about, remember, this is a practice of just observing and trying to find that space, that solid edge space. There are going to be times where you fall into over distraction and over busyness. So what? Big deal. You're human. Take a look at it. Come back to yourself. There are also going to be times where you can't get out of bed. You're feeling pretty low. You know you should go to meetings, but you can't seem to get yourself together to do it. Okay. Look at that level of engagement. It isn't much. But it's also not permission for you to be disrespectful to yourself. Your awareness of your lethargy in your engagement can actually activate you to become more engaged. Your kindness towards yourself can empower you to be more engaged. And stay solid and consistent without being too much or too little. When we are working with engagement and we're wise with our engagement, we avoid the very toxic things like compassion fatigue, burnout, and stress, work-related stress, and very serious health issues, actually. So some things you can do to support engagement. Again, stay curious. Look at your enjoyment of your life. Your life really is meant to be something to enjoy, which is why she encourages that you play and be creative, and above all things, stay connected with people. And the final edge state is compassion. And we spent many months talking about this really complex, in-depth, beautiful quality, limitless quality that we possess, and this edge state. Thich Nhat Hanh once defined compassion in a way that I really love, and I'd like to share it with you today. Compassion, calm, is with, to be with. Passion is to suffer, to be with suffering. And one of the ways that we get mixed up in our compassion is to be with suffering is we sort of feel like we have to take on another person's suffering. But Thich Nhat Hanh reminds us that physicians can be extraordinarily compassionate people, and they are with another person's suffering, but they're doing everything they can to provide comfort and healing without actually having to take on the illness of their patient, the pain of their patient. They kind of, at times, have to steel themselves so that they don't take on the pain of another. They don't fall into empathetic distress. They stay totally present to this patient. They stay totally present to themselves so that as a physician, they can provide precisely what will save and comfort this person. That's what you can do too. Discern what will be of benefit and what do I have the capacity to actually do. If you overextend yourself, you're going to be of less benefit to someone. A way to support compassion. There are many practices. Just like me, grace, ground, recall, attune, consider, exit. That's what grace stands for. I think the most compassionate thing that any of us can do is to keep practicing. Keep breathing, keep listening to this wisdom in the Dharma. Pay attention to how it comes alive in you and dare to experiment and bring it to life in your relationships and in your lives. Make mistakes, learn from your mistakes, keep going. That is an extraordinary act of compassion and courage. And it all happens at the edge. There's a wonderful saying, friends, and I'll end with this, and thank you for letting me share so much of this book. But this is a wonderful saying that was brought to my attention many years ago. When you come to the edge of your life and face the unknown and have to take that one step into the unknown, two things are bound to happen. One is you will find something upon which to land. Or two, you will be given wings to fly. Either way, friends, you're going to be okay. Let's go ahead and end our practice today with a dedication of merit. And I'd like to bring us back into the awareness of Jizo. And I'd like to share with you Roshi's words about Jizo. Jizo is actually, she's sort of, or they are the kind of like the patron saint, if you will, primarily of deceased children too. So Jizo often has children in pictures and iconography. Jizo often has children around them. But this is what Roshi wrote about Jizo and wrote about what this bodhisattva, this person who intentionally comes back into this realm of life to be here to help people awaken to the causes and conditions of their own suffering. Jizo is an edge walker, a bodhisattva, and a monk. When the door opens to the gates of hell, Jizo descends into the fiery pit where they find themselves among a multitude of suffering, tortured beings. Instead of frantically trying to save them all, they open their arms wide, and those who can jump in to the billowing sleeves of their robes. Jizo comes alongside those who suffer and offer a way for them to be harrowed from hell and to take refuge in safety and goodness. Even if we suffer, we might be able to offer others or ourselves our own compassion. After all, bodhisattvas do not seek easy situations. So, bodhisattvas, all of y'all, one and all of you, truly, to live a whole human life is to live with a vow to be of benefit to all beings. In the words of the glorious 8th century monk Shantideva, and a deep inspiration to my practice and to me personally. For as long as beings remain, for as long as suffering remains, may I too remain to dispel the misery of the world. Your practice helps dispel the misery of the world, and I cannot thank you enough for it. Thank you for being such a trustworthy, consistent source of inspiration to me and the whole Spokane Sangha. Thank you, friends. We'll see you next time. Namaste.